And when is sex self-ID? When is that nightmare likely to?
Any day now, we don't know. Basically, the government has a majority, so they can push it through whenever they like. So the way they implemented it too is that this Births, Deaths and Marriages bill, which was quite innocuous, it was just an update to this really old bill that needed an update. It went through all of the normal, consultation period with the public. And then after the consultation closed, Labor and the Greens implemented a small administrative change, which was sex self-ID. And so no public consultation. Now all they have to do is take it to the second and third reading and it becomes law. So because they have the numbers, they could potentially do this over 2 nights in a row in Parliament and would get no forewarning. It will just happen.
And then once it's in, how difficult would that be to reverse? I'm just wondering, normal, regular citizen in New Zealand, they don't really know much about it, but because there's hardly any news coverage, so they don't really know what's going on. And then they find out once they realise that they cannot stop men entering women's spaces. How difficult do you think that would be to overturn?
It's going to be really difficult. And the problem is that it's already happening. I had an email from a grandmother and she said that her granddaughter was at the swimming pools doing her swim training, and she went into this after school, and her mother turned up to pick her up. She went into the changing room to get changed and came straight out and said, "Mum, there's a man in the changing room." So her mum went to the pool management and said, "Hey, look, there's a man in the changing room. Can you please ask him to leave?" The pool management went in, they said, "No, identify as a woman." And so the pool management, he looked like a man, right? So the pool manager rang the police turned up and said, "No, we cannot ask her to leave, sorry." So the consequence of that now is the daughter no longer goes into the pool changing rooms and goes home in her wet togs. So Speak Out for Women managed to stop this legislation going through in 2018. Back then it was a coalition government and New Zealand First was a bit more conservative, and so we managed to get the brakes put on that way because they got some Crown law advice that basically said it breached women's human rights. But what the government did really stealthily is they went through all government departments and changed all the legislation. So it essentially enacted self-ID without the legislation passing. So when they come back to it this time, they can say, well, look, it's happening in every government department. It just makes sense to make birth certificates fit in with everything else. So it's just this kind of backdoor way of,
But it's the same everywhere. That's what they do, isn't it? That's why gender appears in, even though we have no gender definition in law, or certainly in any policy, any government policy, we can't see the word gender and what it means and why it means anything. But they just surreptitiously just replace the word sex, and then the next minute you've got laws based on gender. And so it's
and there's a lot of people that actually don't understand that gender isn't sex either. They just assume that gender means sex, because sex is taken out of the equation.
I think gender is such a nonsensical, silly, useless word that has afforded men to gain access to women's spaces. So I think we should kill the word.